From the infinite reaches of the cosmos to the limitless power within you. Welcome to Manifesting Cosmic Consciousness with Warren Russel. Every episode is a journey into higher awareness, universal wisdom, and the energy that connects us all. Prepare to expand your mind, elevate your spirit, and unlock your true potential. Now, here's your host, Warren Russel.
Hi, this is Warren Russell with Cosmic Consciousness. What we want to do will be a little different than talk about the aliens and who's here, who's not here, how many aliens are out here, Area 51, Grooms Lake, and all of that, which is good. But we have Neville Goddard. He's going to help us to understand cosmic consciousness. Neville is on.
Close your eyes for a moment. Not to visualize, not to practice, not to do anything at all. Just close them. Breathe slowly, as if you have all the time in the world, because you do. Feel the weight of your body against the chair. Feel the simple fact of your breathing in, out, happening without any effort from you whatsoever. You are not making yourself breathe. You are not forcing your heart to beat. The deepest, most essential functions of your existence are happening right now in complete, effortless, trustful surrender. And they have been happening every moment of your life, without struggle, without monitoring, without you needing to control them. Now open your eyes. And let me ask you something. If the very force that keeps you alive operates through surrender, if the intelligence that runs your body, grows your cells, circulates your blood, does all of it without your anxious intervention, why have you decided that getting what you desire requires you to fight so hard? Why have you decided that the same power that manages the unfathomable complexity of a living human being needs your worry to help it manifest a relationship? A sum of money, a healed body, a changed circumstance? Where did you learn that? Because I want to suggest to you tonight that everything you've been taught about effort, about striving, about grinding your way toward what you want, all of it, every last piece of it, is precisely backwards. And tonight we are going to turn it around. Let me tell you what most people believe about manifestation. They believe it is a matter of force. They believe that if they do not push, do not strive, do not grind, do not work hard enough and long enough and desperately enough, they will have nothing. That desire must be earned. That the universe is some kind of cosmic employer who evaluates your effort before releasing your reward. And so they push. They do their practices with white-knuckled intensity. They visualize through clenched jaws. They affirm through gritted teeth. They perform their gratitude and their faith as though they are being graded, as though there is some celestial auditor checking the quality of their feeling and deciding whether it is good enough to qualify for delivery. And then they wonder why it feels like swimming upstream, why the more they try, the more exhausted they become, why the desire seems to stay just out of reach, always approaching, never arriving, like a horizon that retreats as you walk toward it. I want to tell you why. Because anxiety is itself an assumption. When you strive toward something with urgency, with desperation, with the grinding energy of someone who needs to make something happen, underneath all that effort is a belief. A deep, structural, fully operative belief. It is not yet done. That is what all that striving is saying. Every anxious visualization, every desperate affirmation, every frantic technique performed from a place of need, all of it is broadcasting with perfect clarity the assumption that the desire is still absent, still pending, still out there somewhere, waiting to be earned, to be deserved, to be wrestled into existence. And consciousness, which is the only creative force in the universe, which creates not from what you perform, but from what you assume hears that, and faithfully, precisely, without judgment or mercy, delivers more of the same, more absence, more not yet, more almost but not quite, because that is what you are most deeply, most consistently, most honestly assuming. So what is the alternative? Not passivity, not indifference, not sitting in your chair doing nothing and waiting for the universe to deliver your desires to your doorstep. The alternative is something far more demanding than striving and far more powerful: relaxation. I do not mean the relaxation of someone who has given up. I do not mean the slack-jawed indifference of someone who has decided nothing matters. I mean the relaxation of someone who knows. There is a particular quality to the stillness of a person who genuinely knows something. Think of a woman in the early months of pregnancy. She cannot yet see the child. She cannot yet feel it move. To the outside world, nothing has visibly changed, and yet she does not lie awake at night wondering if the baby is going to happen. She does not perform elaborate rituals to ensure the growth continues. She does not check obsessively for signs that something is forming. She knows, and from that knowing, she moves through her days with a quality of quiet confidence that requires no external confirmation. The absence of visible proof does not disturb her. Why would it? She already knows what is true. That is the state I am describing. Not the frantic energy of hoping it works, not the exhausting performance of believing hard enough, the simple, grounded, almost boring certainty of someone who has accepted a fact. It is done, not will be done, not working toward done, not hoping to be done. Done, already, now, complete. And from that assumption, held not through effort, but through genuine inner acceptance, the world has no choice but to reorganize itself in accordance. Now I want to say something that may challenge you. The world has taught you that ease is suspicious. It has told you in 1,000 explicit and implicit ways that things worth having must be hard to get. That struggle is evidence of seriousness. That if something comes easily, you probably don't deserve it, or it probably isn't real, or there must be a catch. And so when someone says to you, relax, let go, stop striving, something rises up defensively. It says, but if I stop pushing, everything will fall apart. If I stop worrying, I am being irresponsible. If I stop trying so hard, I am giving up. I want to look at that belief very carefully, because what it is actually saying is this: I do not trust the law. I believe my effort is more powerful than the creative force of consciousness itself. I believe my worry is doing something useful. I believe that if I stop monitoring, stop controlling, stop forcing, the universe will simply forget about me. Do you see how much power that belief gives to your doubt? Do you see how it makes your anxiety the most important force in the equation, more important than the law, more important than the assumption, more important than consciousness itself? This is the trap within the trap. The belief that struggle is necessary is itself the thing preventing the effortless arrival of what you desire. Because when you struggle, you are assuming scarcity. You are assuming resistance. You are assuming that getting what you want is, by nature, hard. And the law, which has no opinion, which simply delivers the physical equivalent of your dominant inner state, gives you exactly that experience. A world where getting things is hard, where everything requires effort, where nothing comes easily, not because that is the nature of reality, but because that is what you have most deeply, most persistently assumed reality to be. Let me tell you what happens when you genuinely relax into the assumption of the wish fulfilled. Not what I promise will happen, what must happen. By law, first, your inner conversation changes. Right now, for most people, the inner conversation sounds like a person who is managing a crisis. What if it doesn't come? What if I'm doing this wrong? What if I don't deserve it? What if I've missed something? What if the timing is wrong? An endless loop of contingency and doubt running underneath everything like a low-grade fever. When you genuinely inhabit the state of the wish fulfilled, when you actually, truly, without performance, assume that it is done, that conversation changes. It becomes quiet. Not because you have suppressed the doubt by force, but because the doubt loses its premise. It cannot run the loop of what if it doesn't come when you have genuinely accepted that it already has. The fear-based inner conversation needs the assumption of absence to survive. Remove that assumption, and it simply has nothing to stand on. In its place, stillness, a quality of inner silence that is not empty but full, pregnant with the reality of the fulfilled desire, saturated with the feeling of already. Second, your body changes. You know what anxiety feels like in your body. The tightness in the chest, the shallow breath, the clenched jaw, the restless energy of someone who is perpetually braced for the worst. That is the body of someone assuming threat, assuming lack, assuming that things might go wrong. The body of someone genuinely at rest in their assumption feels entirely different. The breath deepens without effort. The shoulders drop. The jaw unclenches. The eyes soften. There is a quality of presence not spacing out, but genuinely arriving in the moment that comes when you are no longer bracing against an imagined future. People notice this even when they cannot name it. There is something magnetic about a person who is genuinely at peace with where they are and what they know. Not arrogant peace, the peace of someone who thinks they are better than others, but the quiet, grounded, self-contained peace of someone who simply knows. Third, and this is what the world calls miraculous, though it is only the law, being the law, the outer world begins to reorganize. Not immediately, not always visibly, but with a precision and an elegance that, once you have witnessed it in your own life, leaves you permanently changed. The bridge of incidents forms. The right person appears in an unexpected conversation. The email arrives from a direction you never anticipated. The solution presents itself in a moment of stillness rather than in any moment of striving. The circumstance shifts not because you forced it, but because you stopped pushing against it. And in that release, the current of your assumption was finally free to move. I want to address the objection that is sitting in the back of some of your minds. But I can't just do nothing. I have responsibilities. I have actions to take. I have a life to live. Yes, you do. And I am not asking you to stop acting. I am asking you to change the state from which your action flows. There is action that comes from anxiety, from the desperate, grinding energy of someone who is trying to force a result. This action is exhausting. It is effortful in a way that depletes rather than energizes. It often produces results that have to be maintained by more effortful action because they were built from the assumption of struggle and therefore perpetuated. And there is action that comes from assumption, from the natural, almost effortless movement of someone who knows where they are going and is simply walking there. This action does not feel like striving. It feels like expression. Like the flower that doesn't strain to bloom, it simply blooms, because that is the natural outgrowth of what it already is. When you are genuinely inhabiting the state of the wish fulfilled, the actions you take are different in quality. They arise naturally, from the inside out, rather than being forced mechanically from the outside in. You find yourself drawn to do certain things, to make a certain call, to write a certain message, to go to a certain place, not because you have figured out the optimal strategy, but because those actions feel natural to who you are being. And the results of those actions tend to be disproportionate to the effort involved, because they are not powered by your anxiety, they are powered by your assumption. And assumption is a far more efficient engine than effort. Let me say something about the harvest. When a farmer plants seeds, he does not dig them up every day to check whether they have germinated. He does not lie awake at night wondering if the seeds are growing. He does not perform elaborate rituals over the soil to try to accelerate the growth. He plants, and then he trusts the process. He goes about his days knowing, not hoping, not wishing, not performing that the harvest is coming. Because he understands that once the seed is in the ground, in good soil, the growth is not a matter of his effort. It is a matter of law, of nature doing what nature does when the right conditions are met. Your assumption is the seed. The soil is consciousness. And the law which does not fail, which has never failed, which cannot fail any more than gravity can fail, is the force that grows the seed into its harvest. Your role is not to make it grow. Your role is to not dig it up, to not interrupt the process with doubt, to not disturb the soil with anxiety, to not keep demanding proof of germination before the shoot has had time to appear above ground. Your role is to plant with genuine assumption, not performed assumption, not hoped assumption, but genuine, settled, bone-deep acceptance of the fact, and then to rest. To water the seed with your faith, to shine upon it with the warmth of a consciousness that knows, beyond any need for external proof, that the harvest is coming. And it will come, not because you earned it, not because you deserved it, not because you performed your practice correctly or believed hard enough or did everything right, because you planted the seed, and planting is always followed by harvest. That is the law, and the law does not fail. Now let me speak to the moments of contradiction, because they will come. You will settle into this state of quiet knowing, and then something will happen that seems to contradict everything. The circumstances will scream. The evidence will press against your assumption with what feels like overwhelming force, and something inside you, old, deeply grooved, familiar, will say, "You see, you were foolish to believe. Look at what's actually happening." In that moment, you will be given a choice. You can react. You can take the bait of appearances. You can let what you see determine what you assume. You can abandon the state and descend back into the anxiety and striving that feels, at least, like doing something. Or you can do something far harder and far more powerful. You can remain. You can look at what appears to be contrary evidence and say quietly, privately, with the certainty of someone who understands how the law works, "This is old data. This is the echo of a prior state. This is not the current creative force in my life. I see it, I acknowledge it, and I refuse to let it determine my assumption." And then you return to the stillness, to the knowing, to the acceptance of the wish fulfilled. Not frantically, the return itself should be relaxed. A gentle coming back, like refocusing your eyes. "Oh, I drifted. Here is the state. I am here again." And you settle. And the law, which never stopped working, continues its work. Every time you make this choice to remain in the state rather than react to the appearance, you do something profound. You demonstrate to your own consciousness that your inner knowing is more real to you than your outer circumstances. And consciousness, registering this choice, deepens the assumption. It becomes more embedded, more automatic, more yours, until eventually, and this day comes, if you are faithful, the appearances simply stop moving you. Not because you have become indifferent, but because your inner knowing has become so solid, so settled, so completely your home, that the outer noise simply cannot reach where you live. That is what mastery looks like. Not the triumphant performance of someone who has conquered their doubt, the quiet, unhurried stillness of someone who has simply outgrown the need for external proof. There is a word I want to give you: Sabbath. In its oldest, deepest meaning, the Sabbath is not a day of the week. It is a state of consciousness. It is the holy rest that follows completion. The stillness of the seventh day after the work of creation is done, when the Creator rests in the finished reality of what has been made. "It is good," said the voice of creation. "It is finished," and rested. Not because there was nothing more to do, but because the work of consciousness was complete. The assumption had been made, the seed had been planted, the inner reality had been established. And then rest. This is your invitation tonight, to enter your own Sabbath, to say of your desire, of your fulfilled state, of the reality you have claimed in consciousness, "It is done, it is finished, it is good," and to rest there, not to monitor, not to check, not to strategize or force or perform, to simply rest in the knowing that it is complete. This is not the rest of someone who has given up. It is the rest of someone who has accomplished the only thing that ever needed accomplishing. The inner shift, the acceptance of the end, the assumption held with genuine, settled, peaceful conviction that the desire is already done in consciousness and that consciousness is the only reality there is. Everything else is merely the echo catching up. So let me give you something practical to carry out of here tonight. Not a technique, a question. How would I feel if I knew, beyond any doubt, that what I desire is already done? Not how would I feel if I saw proof? Not how will I feel when it arrives? How would I feel right now if I simply knew the way I know my own name, the way I know what city I live in, that it is already complete in consciousness and therefore inevitable in form? Sit with that question. Not to find the right intellectual answer, but to find the feeling, the actual felt sense of what that knowing would be like in your body, in your breath, in the quality of your inner silence. And then this is everything be that. Not perform it, not display it. Be it. Let it change your breath. Let it soften your jaw. Let it slow your walk and deepen your voice and quiet the urgency in your eyes. Let the feeling of "it is done" become the atmosphere you move through, the air you breathe, the quiet background of everything you do and say and think throughout your day. This is not a technique you add to your existing life. It is an identity you step into. The person who knows it is done moves differently than the person who is hoping it will be done. They inhabit the same body, they face the same circumstances, and they live in completely different realities. Because they are being completely different assumptions. And consciousness, which is the only creative force there is, delivers the physical equivalent of the assumption you are most deeply, most persistently, most truly being. I want to close with this. You are not here to earn your good. Let me say that again, because most of you have been told the opposite so many times that it has become invisible, like water to a fish. You are not here to earn your good. Your desires are not rewards for sufficient effort. They are not prizes distributed to the most disciplined, the most faithful, the most deserving. They are not being withheld by some cosmic authority who is evaluating your worthiness. Your desires are revelations. They are signs, precise, personal, intimate signs of what already exists as your inheritance in the realm of consciousness. The moment a desire arises in you, it is because on some level you are aware, however dimly, that this thing belongs to you, that it is available to you, that somewhere in the infinite field of what is possible, this particular reality is calling your name. Your job is not to create it. It already exists. Your job is to claim it. And claiming it does not look like striving. It does not look like performing. It does not look like white-knuckling your way through a visualization practice while secretly terrified it won't work. Claiming looks like acceptance. Quiet, genuine, settled acceptance of the end, of the fact, of the already done. This is mine. I accept it as mine. It is done in consciousness, and therefore, inevitably, it must become done in form. That acceptance, held with real conviction, return to faithfully when you drift, made the quiet center of your inner life, is the only work that has ever been required. Everything else, all the techniques and methods and practices, have only ever been roads to this stillness, this knowing, this rest. So breathe, let your shoulders drop, let your jaw unclench. Let go of the need to make something happen, to monitor the progress, to perform your faith correctly enough that the universe finally decides you qualify. You already qualify. You always have. The desire in your heart is not a wish. It is a promise. And the only thing standing between you and the fulfillment of that promise is your willingness to stop fighting your way toward it and simply open your hands and receive. It is done. Rest in that. Good evening. This is Neville Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.
Well, thank you for listening to Cosmic Consciousness. That was Neville Goddard. Check him out because he's got more to help you with. Have a good one. Talk to you next time.
As our journey through the cosmos comes to a close, remember this. The universe is always responding to the energy you create. Continue to manifest with purpose, live with intention, and let your consciousness guide your path. Thank you for joining Manifesting Cosmic Consciousness with Warren Russell. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars and never stop exploring the infinite possibilities within.